Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're going to go over courseware today and just kind of that refresher of how to use courseware and some of the pieces that you're looking for. Before we start, I want to do a quick introduction. I'm with Edmentum, which is the company that produces courseware. When our vision is really a world where educators succeed and students thrive everywhere learning occurs. So really honing in on making sure that you're successful with your students every day and working for them to see success. And then just highlight some of our values as well, that we place educators first. Our purpose is what fuels us. We create a positive impact. Our people are our heart. We lead with respect and trust. Empathy guides our actions. Diversity and inclusion strengthen us. And I like to highlight those just so you know a little bit about Edmentum and who we are as a company. So this slide really talks about some of the other programs that we offer as well. Courseware and ExactPath are two that you see, where digital curriculum is where courseware fits, and then ExactPath, which we'll be talking about next week, is in our assessments for learning platform. And then there are a couple other, some are more K-12 situations that they apply to. So like I said, my name is Andrew Kappel. I am also located in Minnesota. I'm just north of the Twin Cities in Blaine. I'm a customer success manager with Edmentum. So that means I do what we're doing now, programs, as well as troubleshoot and work through anything that comes up and talk about how we can best make sure that the programs are implemented in a successful way that works for you at your program. So if you have questions, you can always reach out to me. There's my email address there, and I'm happy to help. And prior to Edmentum, I was a social studies teacher in high school and middle school, as well as an instructional coach at the middle school level and a principal at both the high school and middle school. And way back long ago, to relate a little bit more, I did tutor GED as I was in my graduate program. So, but that's been quite a while. So if I can get a better read where you're at with courseware, I have a quick check for you, just kind of that stoplight check. Green would be, hey, I'm good to go. I'm just here to make sure I didn't forget anything. I'm using it with high fidelity. Yellow, I have some experience, but I got some to learn. And red is, I haven't touched it before. You would just put that in the chat for me real quick so that I can know and cater this a little bit better towards where your goals are and where your comfortability level is really with courseware. All right. Perfect. See some of those coming through. Excellent. So we've got the whole gambit. So we'll make sure that you're supported. And if you have questions, we have some time for that today too. But we will make sure that you're comfortable. And like I said, after today's training, if there's something that comes up that you're going, hey, I think I remember that, but I need a quick refresher. I know we're recording, but don't hesitate to reach out as well. So thank you for your input on those. So courseware. We're going to really look at the program functionality, how to use it with your students today. And we've got a lot to cover. So we'll do a quick overview. I'm going to show you what it looks like from the student side. And in these presentations, I will say that is probably my favorite piece to go over, because it really is the piece that you don't get to see as an instructor. And it gives you the ability to help your students out as they jump in and go, what am I supposed to do? Or how do I navigate this? It gives you that opportunity to see it. So we'll spend some time in there. I'll give you some demo login so you can log in as a student and see what it looks like as well, and navigate some of the content. And then we'll jump into the educator side. So the side that you're going to use to help navigate your students through the courses that you assign to them and help them see success, and how to manipulate and move through that content in a way that best meets your needs for your learners. And then we'll look at some support resources and talk about some next steps. So at the end of this today, you'll be able to identify the key features within courseware. You'll be able to use the curriculum status to effectively manage the learner experience, and then identify and utilize best practices for all course activities and assessments. So, all right. And as we looked at outcomes, we know every program is a little bit different within Minnesota. courseware through Literacy Minnesota. And so we know some of the outcomes for implementation may be a little different than what we're seeing today, but really our outcomes and goals for courseware is that we would increase that college and career readiness, as well as the readiness for the GED, HiSET, and adult diploma readiness. So, and you may have a little bit different goals, like I said, with your implementation too. So, all right. So our commitment within courseware is to evidence-based outcomes, right? We see, and this applies a little bit more probably to the high school level, but we have original and first-time credit, right? That full course where students are going to take. Credit recovery options, which I'll highlight that for you today, especially if you're working with adult learners that may already have some knowledge in areas where we can utilize some of the exemptive features of courseware, and we utilize that in a credit recovery situation. And like we said, we're constantly expanding our catalog and focus on that college and career readiness. So these combined show that we can use them for blended learning, virtual learning, or a mix of both in the classroom. So, all right. So our learning design principles, I'm not going to read every word on the slide for you today, but some of the aspects that go into the design of courseware is it's designed for mastery learning, which takes students in it, and I'll talk about this a little bit further into the presentation, but it makes sure that students are learning it as those checks for understandings come up, and make sure that students aren't just clicking through to get to the end of the content. I know that's probably a little less common with adult learners than it is some of our K-12 learners, but really honing in, and it does provide supports and scaffolding for students as well, if they're not reaching that mastery level, to go back and know what content they need to review before they move forward. All right. We have deliberate practice built in there, right? Intentional structured practice for students to move through before they're moving into taking those mastery tests and assessment. There's explicit instruction, active engaging learning with the models that are built in to involve learners in responding and manipulating. They're not just watching a video or clicking through, they have to engage with the content. And then there's also ways for students to reflect on their learning through metacognitive strategies. All right, so as we jump into courseware, we're going to have the structure here of our courses. So you as a student, you're going to assign a student a course, and this is what they'll see. And it's common in most courses, the core courses, math, reading, science, and social studies, that they're going to jump in, they're going to have a student orientation to courseware. What is courseware and how does it work, right? A course syllabus for the given course that you have. And then there's going to be a breakdown to the number of units, and courses contain a different number of units given the course, right? If you go over to that middle column, then we'll look at units. Each unit has a pretest, which is optional. You can turn that on or off. That pretest is used to exempt students from content that they already know, though. So that's something we'll highlight and take a peek at. That's probably something that you're going to want to use as a best practice with your adult learners, especially if they've had some experience in the content area that you're looking at. There are online discussions built into the program, and then there's lessons in there as well. And just like we jump to the middle column to take a look at how the lessons are structured, we'll jump all the way over to the right. You have a tutorial, which is that instruction for students. And then in math, you're going to have some practice, and then the mastery test. And like we talked about that mastery learning in the last slide, a student needs to reach 80%. So they'll go through the content, they'll have a mastery test. It's a short, a couple question test, and they have to reach 80% on it. If they don't reach 80%, they're going to be directed back to the tutorial to review the content that they were supposed to review, and make sure that they identify any misconcepts that they had, and then they'll be able to take that mastery test again. If they do master it, they'll move on to that next module. After they complete the lessons, then they'll go back to that unit structure. There'll be a unit activity. There may be some unit practice depending on the content, and a post test for the unit. So that's kind of the general structure. And then there's another unit, they'll go to the next unit. If not, they'll move to the end of the semester test unless they're in an algebra course. And that end of semester test will test them on all the content that they had. And like I said, that is the core courses, your math, English, science, and reading classes. For elective courses, it looks a little bit different. It's more of a linear pattern. So the students will see that getting started, like we talked about with the course syllabus and the orientation for them. And then they'll move through the unit introduction, lessons, critical thinking, activities labs, flashcards, quiz, unit discussion, and a unit podcast. So a very different kind of structure to it. So you'll be able to, after you use courseware a little bit, you'll be able to know if you're in an elective course or the students in a core course just by looking at the layout of the content. All right, so we'll go ahead and jump in, and I am going to show you what the student lens looks like. Give me 1 second. I'm going to do a quick stop share the screen and jump over to a different window. Okay. So this is the login for Edmentum. As your students get there, they'll use your login information that you have and log in. So the first thing that's going to pop up from the student lens is a question that says, are you in class? And the reason behind that is the question really is, are you in a setting where you're being proctored? So if they're taking an assessment, clicking no is not going to necessarily let them go that way. So if they're in with you or you're giving them the go ahead, you don't necessarily need to proctor something. Just tell your students to click yes. And I would guess that'll be the case for most adult learners. And this is the piece that I say, like I said in the beginning, it's one of my favorite things because you don't necessarily get to see it as a teacher. There's some similarities, but also it looks different. So when a student logs in, they'll see a number of things. They'll see their name up in the top, right? Our student is Demo Learner 25. They have a home button to get back to this page, a messages button if you want to communicate with them. I'll click on that so you can see what the messages look like, right? There's some, it'll show them when you've reviewed an activity or you've given them a score, as well as you can communicate there. There's a notes button, which will come back and we'll look at these notes. These are notes that are actually taken in the course, but so a student doesn't need to go click on the course and then find the notes they took digitally. It all comes to the homepage, which is a really, really nice feature. And then there's a rewards feature there as well that does some, there's some trophies and different pieces they can earn. I'm guessing that probably won't be a huge use for you, but it's there if you need it. And then you have your courses down here. And I want to highlight this front page because there's a lot of data for students right away. You have the name of the course. I recommend that you use your name if you're the primary instructor in there and date it in some way, shape, or form for students so they know if they're with you for an extended period of time that that's an old course or that's a course that's completed. It'll show an end date, and I'll show you how to navigate this. You probably won't be using a ton of the guiding dates there for students, but the one benefit to using them is it will show them kind of where they're at within the course. So you have that course grade, which shows them if the course were to end today and you have completed the work that you've completed up to today, how much of the full course have you completed if we're counting the whole course? And then the current grade is, think back to when you're in school with the grade chart that the teacher put on the wall, the printout of the learning management system. That's the grade that the current grade is. So as of today, with the work that has been assigned, the student has completed 90% of that, the activities in there. And then down bottom, you'll see the number of activities they have to complete, how many they've completed, and then there's a little icon there. And like I said, these will only show up if you do put the end dates in there. So it'll show the student if they're off pace, on pace, slightly behind, or ahead. So we'll go ahead and click into a course. So this student, again, right here, there's some of that same data that we saw before, the course grade and the current grade. And then there's a nice bar graph if you do have those dates set that will show a black line where the student's supposed to be, and then the color filling in how much they've completed up to date. So they can view a progress report right up in the top corner. I'll show you that real quick. It's just an outline of how they've scored when they've completed different pieces as well. So And then they have all their content. And there's a couple navigation buttons here that you can take a peek at. It defaults to if you do have dates set, it will break out weekly targets for the student. It will also show them things that if the dates are on that were past due that they haven't completed, the assignments that have not been started, those that are in progress, not mastered, and then completed. So I always recommend, if you do have the dates turned on, that the student's feeling overwhelmed with this front page of, oh my goodness, this to do, right? That's the full course. Have them click over to one of these other tabs, weekly target or past target if they're behind, so that they can see it in a smaller way. It decreases anxiety a little bit and helps out. So, all right, let's take a look at the unit structure, since we talked about that before. And we can take a peek at it. So you can see that this student took the pretest, and as a result of taking the pretest, they exempted out of a couple assignments because they already showed mastery of those topics within that pretest. And you'll see the little E and a star, and that means that they've been exempted from it. It doesn't mean they don't have access to the content. It just means that they don't have to do it if they don't want to for a grade. So there's no grade counting against them or for them for an exemption there. You'll see the general piece. There's a discussion in here, as well as a unit activity, and those are teacher graded assignments. So that's something that you'll want to be aware of, that discussions and unit activities are going to be teacher graded assignments. Most everything else will be a computer graded, so it will provide a score for you. If we go ahead and click into the unit to a lesson, and I'll go into this exempt one here, you can see scarcity and opportunity has a couple different pieces. We'll go ahead and click on the tutorial, and then there's a mastery test below. I'll give you a quick overview of what it looks like to see the content and some of the details within it. And then I'll give you a chance to practice and jump in, logged in as a student, so that you can play around with it. So the first thing you see when you do enter the actual content are some of the tools that are available. Up on the top, you have back and forth to navigate the slides. See that we start with a video, and most of them do, just a quick intro. And then along the left side, there's some really great tools that are available. There's a table of contents so that students can quickly navigate to where they want to if they don't want to use the arrows. Here's the notes that we talked about. Any notes that they take here will show up on that home page under their notes, so they can quickly access them if they want to. There's the resources here. And our core content has guided notes, which are fantastic. I'm going to show those to you in just a second after we finish the rest of the tools. They also include a glossary there for you as well. A dictionary, if anybody has a word they want to look up, built right in, so they don't have to navigate to a separate screen if they don't want to. But I know in my experience, many students just use Google or pull out their phone for a word lookup, right? And then the option to have the text read to them. I'm going to actually bump forward to a slide that has some text on it so that we can see the difference in this. And I'm not sure actually if my sound will come through or not. But so for example, a text slide here, and there's a question input. You can turn on slide narration so it reads every slide. And you can stop that right up here. Or you can turn on click to speak, which if there's just one sentence that they need read, they can highlight it and it will read it for them.
You look forward to a relaxing weekend.
So those are different options that are available to every student. Very helpful in situations where somebody may have be behind on reading level, or that they have English is not their native home language. So there's also a translation feature. You can take the text, a copy and paste from the content and put it in there and have it translated to any of these languages here. Also very helpful for some of our language learners. And then a calculator, depending on the content, math, economics, science, you'll see that, and a highlighter too, if anyone wants to highlight the text. All right, I said I was going to go back to the guided notes, and these are a really good piece. You can print them out and utilize them, but it follows along with the content, and students can fill in. So there's a glossary objective up top, right? They can fill in the glossary of words. But as you get going, as we really look at that scarcity piece, it's more fill in the blank for them to follow along with the content and take the notes. These are also available in another way, and I'll show you how to navigate to them if you're not in the content so you can see them from a teacher, as well as there's a key available for them too. So you can kind of see that, and I'll navigate over and show you how to access these. I'm going to save and exit the assignment here. And it's going to put us back here. Once that was done, we would take the mastery test and go from there. So to get to, all right, I'm going to go back out. We go home. And I'm going to sign into a teacher account real quick. All right, so when you're in a teacher account, you can click on the Help Center, Learn and Support. Once you're in Learn and Support, you'll find your state, so Minnesota down here. And I'll show you this again at the end. So we were in a social studies course, we were in economics, we would find that course. And within that course, then you'll see the syllabus, the teacher guide, and all of your guided notes here. So you can access with the as well as a key for all those guided notes. So if you need to look something up for a student, you don't know off the top of your head, that's all available to you within the teacher side of Learn and Support. So there's that. I'm going to log out of here real quick. And we'll log back in as a student and finish up showing you that side, and then I'll give you a chance to play around with it. All right, there's that. Are you in class again? All right, we'll click back into our economics course. And I do want to just show you real quick what a discussion looks like. Oh, I'm locked out of that one. And a unit activity. They have a little bit different look to them than the general tutorials and mastery tests, right? They're typically found, the discussion not always, but the unit activity towards the end of a unit's learning. So you'll have the opportunity to learn the content and then apply the content. So this one's going to ask students to apply the content by reading a news article. You've encountered items around, I forget what economic feature this was, but concepts that appear in the news almost daily. Understanding information will help you better understand economic health in the United States. So it tells them what they're going to be scored on. This is important for the teacher as well. As I mentioned, this is a teacher scored activity. It's going to kind of assign the points, give them the rubric there, and then it's going to launch them into the content, right? So click your state on a map, find employment data for your state, and then it's going to have them fill out some different information based on it and go through with the different pieces here. I'm not going to take the time to do this because I want you to have some time to jump in. But you can kind of see there's quite a few questions that are really at the application level. If you think about like a Bloom's taxonomy, and getting kids to take what they've learned and think about it, and metacognition, and apply it. So there's that. And then when they're done, they would submit it for a score and it would come back to you. All right. I'm going to close out of there. Are there any questions based on the student side that you have right off the bat?
Yeah, Andrew, there's a question in the chat about transcripts for the videos. Wondering if you could show the transcript format, like does it replicate a script? Does it have punctuation?
Mm-hmm. Give me 1 second here. Pull this back up. Okay. Move that out of the way. So let's go into a lesson again and take a peek at it. Were you able to hear as I had sound playing or no?
Yeah, we could hear that.
Okay, excellent. Let's find a video. I don't know that this video. I think this video might all be. So I don't think this video has sound, but if it did, you could click on the transcript and it would tell you what it is. But I don't believe it has a closed caption within it. I'd have to check a video that that has that sound. It may be within this option, but I have to get back to you on that closed caption piece, but the transcript is there. Okay. Any other questions while we're still in the student side? Okay. Yep, and there's that question that Elizabeth talked about with the reports breaking down the amount of time in class and out of class, and we'll look at that when we're in the teacher side. So, okay. All right, so I'm going to put in the chat, give me 1 second to get this link. I'm going to put in the chat the link that I want you to go to log in. And you may have that already, very accessible. So here's the link. And let's figure out what the easiest way to do this is. I'm going to screen share again. And it's got some account logins. It'll give you all the information that you need to log in. So maybe I'll just quickly do some shout outs as the way I see it in my list. Renee, if you want to take Demo Learner 11, Cindy, Demo Learner 12, Tammy, Demo Learner 13, Jessica, Demo Learner 14, Teresa, Demo Learner 15, Lori, Demo Learner 16, Kim, Demo Learner 17, Vicky, Demo Learner 18, Nicholas, Demo Learner 19, and then Sherry, if you want to do Demo Learner 20 and just change that end piece to a 20. I don't have the information, but the password should be the same. And then we'll go from there. I'll hang out here. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to go in. What I'd ask you to do, and all of these students are actually enrolled in the courses that you just saw, I would ask you to go click into a course and take a go through a tutorial, take a mastery assessment, click into a discussion or a unit test, and just see what it looks like. And then we'll come back here at 10 minutes and I will let you know that I'm here again. Oh, Vicky, let's see. I think you were 18. Yep, Renee, 11. All right, were there any questions that came up as you were logged in as a student? Feel free to unmute or just go ahead and throw it into the chat.
Yeah. Where do students go to either erase or edit their notes that they take?
Yeah, so I will give me 1 second. I'm going to log back in. Go with Demo Learner 25. So they can go back into the course and they can definitely go to the notes and do that there. But I screen share back over to this screen. All right, I'm getting logged in. So this student I know has taken some notes in, I believe, econ. All right, we had some notes in there. So when you click on the notes up top, it'll take you into here so you can see all your notes that were taken. And we have law of supply and demand notes. We can just click edit right there and they can go in and do that right from there. Or we can go back into the course and find where supply and demand was, where this note was taken in the econ class, and we can edit it there. So right. Any other questions? Let's see the chat here real quick. Okay, so learning paths, sorry, Teresa, your account must have exact path on it as well. We're covering that next week. I apologize. I think some of the accounts have that loaded and some did not. So I apologize that you had that one there and I didn't specify that before logging in. So the learning path is part of our exact path program, not the courseware program. Okay. All right, I'm going to move us on to the teacher side because I'm guessing that's the side that we're most excited about. So I'm going to stop sharing there and bring us back to the other screen. All right. All right, so we'll look at the educator lens now that we've seen the student side and what they're going to see within courseware and how they can navigate. Hopefully that you have somewhat of an understanding there that you would be able to help a student move through there and make sure that they're able to go through there. I'm just reading the chat real quick. Yes, there is a save in. Thanks, Elizabeth, for helping out with that. All right. So, I'm going to take us back and we're going to just jump right in. How's that? Sign out. Sorry, I'm flipping back and forth between screens quite a bit here. So we'll go screen two. One thing to point out with courseware as well is that every time you open a new tab, you click a button to go into content within courseware, it opens a new tab. So you can end up with a lot of tabs open pretty quick. So I'm going to jump in as an instructor here. And it brings us to a different landing page when we first logged in, and this is called Edmentum Sensei. And so with Edmentum Sensei, it kind of gives you the rundown of what you need to know about the work that your learners have done. And so right away, you can see that some of the work that was done while you were logged in there's a pretest completed in a couple different pieces that I can take a look at. And I know that I need to look at those. With the pretest, I don't have to do any grading. That's a computer graded thing. So there's nothing to grade for me. But if I had anything that was there to grade, that would also show up here and tell me, hey, you've got some work to do, right? Along the side here, you can see any new messages from your students, any announcements, anything that's been locked because of mastery attempts and a student may have taken it and it locked on them because they didn't reach mastery that you might need to unlock. Anything that the student has mastered within the modules, assessment completion and assessment due, right? So you can see that all right off the bat. The other pieces up top here within Edmentum Sensei just cover communication. So that's more your message center back and forth to a student. You can send messages from within courseware here as well. And you can send an announcement to the whole class if you'd like to. I don't know how often you'll use this, but this screen here, when you click on students, gives you your students listed there, their last time that they logged in, how long they were logged in for, and what they were last working on. And you'll see that this dot here is green on some of them because we've got some students that are currently logged in still from our demo that we just went through. So it tells us if students are on there, and if we click on it, we can force log off, right? It will also tell you if you're expecting somebody to be on there and they're not, if they're not on there, as well as you'll see some different things like Demo Learner 13 has not been active recently, last active March 8th, and you have your legend up top as well. Final one is ready to score. That's anything teacher graded that's going to show up there. There's the unit activity that we looked at before. It's ready to score for our review. So we can go in and review that and take a peek at it. And I'll click on it so you can kind of see what it looks like, right? We would go in and we will click on the activity. It would show us the work that was done by a student. And actually, I don't know that this one is done. And you can see the big review mode up top. That way you know that you're not in a content, you're reviewing. Yep, this is not one that we did today, but there's your scale and your rubric for you to move through. And then you can review what students are what their answers are here, and it's still loading here. So you'll see that this is the student answer, and it gives you kind of the criteria, US systems in green here. It's going to give you a key to work off of as you grade. So you'll have some different pieces that it gives you as a teacher to look at. So you don't necessarily have to be the expert in every little assignment or have read the article. If you want to, you can, but it does give you that key so that you can work through that. And then there's that finalization of the assignment. So once you reviewed it, you come over here, you can score the activity, or you can review and return without a score and enter some comments for that student. When you're done, save and send, and the student gets their work back. Okay, that is Edmentum Sensei. It's the landing page when you log in, and it is a very helpful page. So we're going to jump into courseware now. So as you saw up top, I went to courseware and I clicked on today we're working out of Utopia High School. And you'll see this teacher is actually the teacher of record for all the classes that we've been working in. So all of our classes are listed here. When you come in here, you'll see the similar metrics as we saw in the student facing side, right? You have those little icons that show you where your students are at, and that's only active if the course end date and beginning date are on and enforced. And I'll show you that when we create a new section here in just a second. And then you have the same thing for all of your classes. You can see this class, nobody's done any work, or they're all behind, one or the other, right? But our econ class, we have a couple people that are on pace. Nobody had a pace. One person just slightly behind, and 19 people that are not behind. I really like these because you can click on them and you can see exactly who those students are, right? And if you need to pull a group of students together, say you've got a couple of your learners together working at your program at some point, you can see, hey, what's going on? Or you can pair them up. If somebody's struggling with something, you can see they're ahead of pace and flying through the content. That's a good way to utilize that metric as well. So, okay. Before I jump into all of the functionality over here in the course, I want to show you how to create a new course. So there's a big green button, new section. It's pretty simple. You'll go ahead and click on that, and then you'll add the course. And you can search up top for what course you're looking for. So we'll go ahead and add a biology course, and we're going to do biology semester A with virtual labs for our students. It'll pop up here. As an instructor, you're automatically going to be placed in as the instructor. If you have, for some reason, settings that you're a program administrator, you will have to add yourself as the instructor there. So you'll go ahead and name this. And like I said, it's helpful to put in there when this course is being taught. So if it's, let's go biology, and we'll just call it 2022-2023 courseware. And yeah, like Elizabeth said, most do have that program administrator access. So if you are wanting to have students see the due dates and that cascade of due dates, you do have to enter an end date, but you can also click no end date, right? It's going to disable the pacing and take away those options for students to see if I'm going to finish this course in the allotted time from the start date to the end date, how much work I need to be doing, and it's going to take that pacing away. So that can also be adjusted by student. I'm going to show you that because I do think it is helpful in some ways, and you can decide your use on there if you want an end date or no date there. You can put some section descriptions in there if you want, instructions, and then you can put in self-enroll, but I recommend that you enroll your students just so that you're able to connect with them and say, hey, we got you enrolled in this course, and make sure that they're in the correct class. So after you've said everything you want with your section, click on continue, and you can add students just by starting to type their name. And so all the students I have in this account are named Demo, ironically, but you can add them just by starting to type. It'll populate up for you a list, and then you can save your section. So I'm going to at least add one student to this one. You can customize their start and end date right here when you add them, and then you'll go ahead and save that section. And we have created a class. So there it is, biology with virtual labs. to go into the class, we'll go ahead and click into a class and take a peek at what's going on here. So let's go back down to our econ class, since that's the one that we've been working out of. And you'll see again, when you click into it, the same metrics of all students, off pace, slightly off pace, pace, ahead of pace. And then you have these two metrics here, ready to score and locked, right? So how many students have something that's locked that you need to unlock because they maybe missed a mastery attempt? How many students have completed a teacher scored activity that you need to score to get back to them? And it will always give you those numbers there, right? So if it's not 0, click in it and make sure that you're touching base with your learners. And then it'll give you the breakdown for every student here of where they're at individually. So you can see these top accounts, I don't use much of them. I usually am in the 20s when we're doing some of our demos. So you'll see more work completed here. But the thing that you can do with students is you can click on them, you can send a message, you can edit their start and end dates, show hide target dates, apply past progress, complete a student, or drop a student. So that's an easy way of clicking on them. You can also access those features over here on the right side by just clicking on there. You can see these pieces as well as a reset password if you have somebody that can't log in. So, all right. Any questions on that piece? I'm going to take a quick 30-second check just to see if we have anything. And we're watching the chat too, so feel free to pop in there if you have anything. Okay. All right. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to edit the curriculum and navigate the well, we'll go to a grade book first, and then we'll show you how to edit and navigate curriculum. So if we click into the grade book right there, you'll see the grade book, and you'll see I'm going to go down here where we have some work done with students. You'll see that these students were exempted because they took that pre-test, and so they're filled in with 100% there, right? But there is some work. Let me find a. Let's see if I have, here we go. Here's some assignments on learner 25 that it's been auto scored, but I can click in and say, hey, well, what's going on? We got supply and demand. I know that we worked with this student on supply and demand module, and it wasn't really a 20. We worked through it. We did some supplementary work. I think they've got this piece, so we're going to bump that up to an 80%, and we can change that, right? So that's the gradebook functionality. Again, you have your status legend up top that will show you the weighted grade, non-weighted, exempt score, right? So if you see something pop up and you're going, wait, why is that little blue E there again? It'll tell you right up top. So the gradebook functionality is pretty much just it. It's a gradebook, and that's where you put in different pieces. Like I said, these are going to populate a new tab every time you click something. So I'm going to click out of the gradebook. I'm not going to spend too much time there, but this curriculum tab right next to the gradebook is where you're going to be able to adjust things for students. So we'll go ahead and click into curriculum here, and you will see it looks similar to the structure that our students see when they log in. And it's laid out in that way. You can, though, move things around. So you're going, unit 1 doesn't really make sense to be unit 1. I'm going to move it down here. Well, all of a sudden, oh, and it opened everything up for me. All of a sudden, unit 1 is now our unit 2, right? It doesn't rename it, but you can reorder things if you need to. And that's a helpful function, right? In our syllabus, we probably want to leave that number 1. But if our students are working through this, you can see the target date is set because I have an end date set for this class. This can be adjusted though by student, like I showed you, by clicking that check mark or those 3 dots next to the student's name. So if you have a student has a goal and you want to turn those on, it's a helpful feature for them, right? You can see the status of assignments here as well, like locked, hidden, or omitted. And you can also click on the 3 dots and navigate in by unit. So if you want your students to not take a pretest before you're able to connect with them on unit 1, you can lock that down, right? Students now can't take that pretest if you save changes until you unlock it for them. So that may be a common piece. Hey, before you start a new unit, I'm going to lock that down, right? So that we connect. That's up to you. If you have students working through this at home, it probably doesn't make much sense. So definitely something to take a peek at. You can also omit the activity if you feel like that's not something that we should be working on, as well as to include the activity if you've omitted it, or hide and unhide so students cannot see it. So if you omit an activity, typically we say best practice is to hide that as well. That's how to do those modifications by activity. If you want to, for the whole class, change things, there's this little caret you can click. And that caret gives you the option to lock, hide, or omit all activities given the topic that it's covering. So if you're looking at discussions and you want to omit all discussions because you'd rather not do online discussion and you have students moving through at different paces, that might be something that you want to omit all and then hide all of those. And you can just click omit all discussions, save change, and then once that's done, hide them all. And now that's taken away the discussions, because you may not have enough students working through that course at the same time to have a rich discussion, given your enrollment in that. Same thing with teacher graded. You can have them locked, unlocked, all of them, mastery tests. You don't have to go through individually and do it by individual by clicking the 3 dots. You can do that for everything. Okay. And that is really the functionality here of, and you'll see like our discussion is locked and hidden and omitted, right, for all students, because we clicked it up top. So that's the basic functionality. If a student comes to you and says, hey, this is locked for me, I need you to unlock it, you can unlock it within their curriculum settings. Or I'm going to click out of this and go back to our main page. So let's say demo learner 25 came along and said, I got something locked. We'll click on his name. And we can go into their specific curriculum, right? That other one I showed you, that curriculum button is for all. If you click on their name, it is specific to them. So we know that this is locked right here. We can click over here and unlock that. So if you've got a situation like we talked about earlier, where students are needing to talk to you before they take a pretest, you can lock them, and then that's where you would come. You click on their name and click unlock, or lock in this case, because it's, and then you would unlock here so that students can access that content. And then it's also gives you that guide of how did they do in this content, right? What's their status? Is it locked, hidden, omitted? Are they exempt, or did they master it? You can see that there. And then if they master it, you can also see how many attempts, what their percent, and how much time they spent on it, right? You can also go into a mastery test and you can view it. You can see the questions that they answered and how they answered. So specifically, if a student's getting 1 out of 5, you can go in and you can click, oh, here's a question, what was the learner's answer? And it shows you right here, right? Versus the answer key. And then same thing up top, you can navigate next, and you can look at their answer key. So it's a quick way to review the content and work with your students around that mastery, especially if that's something that they're missing on. And remember, if they don't reach mastery in the mastery test, they're going back to the tutorial to relearn that learning. And that's a good time to check in, and a great resource as well that you can see what they did. Okay. Any questions on the gradebook curriculum adjustments within the curriculum tab, or individual student navigation for unlocking, omitting, hiding? Okay. All right, I'm going to show you, there's also a weekly progress report here, just a couple other things where you can see where a student is. You can see their weekly time on task by date there. There's also a report I'm going to show you a little later on that will show you that time that they were on task in the program. Time on task does not just mean they were logged in, but it means they're actually doing something. So that's a different piece there. So you can see a breakdown of how they are working there using that weekly progress piece as well by student. There's a quicker way to get that data though, so I'll show you that here in a little bit. Okay, so that is our section details. You have some different actions here. You can also send, you can print different pieces from this screen, but that is the gist of where we're at within modifying for students. I'm going to go back to our homepage here. You can click over. I don't think you guys are using my classrooms too much, but if we may do another training on how to use some of my classrooms. You can also just click over to your students and you can see, I know this teacher has all these students in the courses for the demo purposes, but if you have students in that you're going, what classes are, let's go demo learner 25, where are they enrolled? Right? Oh, they're enrolled in a couple different courses. You can see by student what they're enrolled in, especially if you have multiple instructors. Again, there's your password reset and some of your reports that you can pull here as well. Okay, and then your active tasks. These are going to be your unlocks and your graded pieces. And you can unlock tests right from there as well. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. Any questions while we transition? Okay. I'm going to have you log into your own account then. And I'm going to give you a couple minutes to play around in there with the things that we just covered. And what I'd like you to do in your own account is, if you have not created a class, go ahead and create a class, add a student to it. Go in and see if you can remember how to access that curriculum button and unlock or lock for all. Think about the processes that you're going to use within your program. If you need to lock things, or maybe you need to omit some of those discussions because you realize I'm not going to have enough students to really have a rich discussion back and forth. Go ahead and try that out. I'm going to give you another 10 minutes. So I know we're running low on time as I think through how much time we have left. So it's 4:03. At 4:13, we'll come back. This is logging into your own account though, so I'm not going to put anything up. So go ahead and log in. I'll hang out here about 10 more minutes and then we'll come back. We'll go through some reports and help center, and then we will move forward. So we will see you in about 10 minutes. Feel free to use the chat or come off mute if you have any questions. Before I jump into any instructional best practices, is there any questions that came up while you were in your staff accounts? Okay, feel free to unmute or in the chat and I'll monitor that while I continue to talk here. So for best practices within courseware, right, there's a couple pieces. There's a couple pieces. One thing to think about is with discussions, we covered some of the unique pieces to adult education and the possibility that there may not be many students in there. I'll let you make that decision within your program of what you want to do there, but require students to apply critical thinking to these and give good thought. That might be hard to do if you don't have a lot of kids. So, but if you do, or you have a lot of students in there in your program going through that you could have a rich discussion. So know that and kind of navigate that as you start to get more familiar with the curriculum and content there. Then the unit activities, the project-like activities that we talked about, where we take that learning that we did in the tutorials and looking at our mastery tests and we apply it, our learning. So it's that application phase of that Bloom's taxonomy. Those are really good checks for understanding. I think they're probably one of my favorite pieces of curriculum because it really lets you know if your learner is where they need to be and if they're grasping that content. It's probably one of the places that you'll learn best where your learner is at. So the mastery tests, they are a bank of questions. It varies by courses. There's not unlimited questions though. So if a student's not passing it multiple times, please check in with them before you continue to unlock it for them, because there is not an unlimited bank of questions. So they might start to see repeated questions after a couple times of taking it. And so just to make sure that they're grasping that content, not unlocking them continuously without that check-in as a best practice. All right. Same thing goes with, I was talking about those mastery tests. test security, there's really that end test. There's only one iteration of each assessment because they are quite lengthy. So if you can lock those post tests, unless you know that your student is going to be taking it for a certain time, if there's questions of academic integrity, just be aware that there is only one iteration of those end tests. Right, locking that end of semester test to make sure everything's been reviewed with you prior to them taking it, and then consider resetting the assessment only for extenuating circumstances. And familiarize yourself with the built-in accommodations. Those are what we looked at with that student lens on the side there with the text-to-speech, the translation tools, the guided notes, and making sure that those are there. And then Elizabeth also wanted me to share the weekly check-in example. If you're not using due dates as you check in with your student, I know that Elizabeth provided this weekly check-in form that they use for their students of how they're progressing through their learning. So I'm sure each of your programs has something similar, just a way to check in with our students. Okay. All right. And then usage reports are going to be helpful for measuring time on task, and then your ability to enter those proxy hours into spreadsheets. So I'm going to show you just real quick. I did kind of show you already in one. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and move that off there and stop the share, and I'll go back to my other account so you can see that. Share the screen. Excellent. All right, so I'm back into the teacher version. Actually, I just switched over accounts to a program administrator. So please ignore some of these things up there. They're not pieces that Literacy Minnesota would have access to necessarily. But within courseware for Utopia High School, we know that those proxy hours are important. So as you're in your courses, as we go to manage students, we can pull a report by a student. So courseware, this is not going to be a good one. I'm going to go to demo learner 30 because I know I did some work today as that student. So time on task, right? You can see it just for today as where they're at, but you can pull a report here, the learner daily usage or the learner progress report, right? As you go in and look at that learner daily usage. That's going to give you that time on task and the date range there of the last month. So that will give you that piece that you can enter as a proxy hour. And then if you remember from our courses, if a student's working on one course at a time, another great way to do that is from within the course. We can click on our students. Oh, let's go down to demo learner 25. We can, and that's how we manage their curriculum for the individual student unlocking and locking. We can see their weekly progress right there. And this is really a nice way to lay it out week by week. So you have your time on task right there as well. Some really valuable reports for you. So any questions on how to access that for reporting your proxy hours or how to view those data pieces? I know that's probably a piece that will come up at some point. Don't hesitate to reach out if it does. Okay, I'm going to switch back and share my other screen again. We'll zoom off there. All right, so finally, just a review kind of the things that we're going to hit on today, and know that just because you've gone through the training and you've seen it, it's going to take some time to get comfortable with it. But being able to identify courseware's key features in both the learner and instructor interface is what we did today. Use curriculum status to manage the learner experience, and then identify and utilize instructional best practices for all course activities and assessments. So, and just for yourself and your own reflection, just thinking about how you can take this training today and what you can do with it. So just a goal for yourself. I now understand how to, something that you're wondering before, or oh, I'm beginning to wonder why, right? So a lot of those come up after a training like this. I'd like to know more about some of those things and maybe make yourself a note. And if you're not seeing that as you navigate through the system, then go ahead and shoot myself an email or get a hold of Elizabeth. Either one of us are absolutely happy to help you. So. Okay, there's proxy hour question or piece in there as well. I will also put my email in the chat here in just a second. Any questions here as we wrap that piece up? I'm going to ask you if you have, I'll take your questions. If you wouldn't mind, I'll show you help and support, but I also have a survey at the end here. On the top right side, when you're logged into courseware, there's this help center button, and if you click it and you click on this learn and support piece, there are user manuals for whatever role you're taking: instructor, administrator, administration center. Don't worry about administrators, administration center too much, but that instructor guide will really help walk through some different pieces, and it's searchable, so you can put the keywords in there. You can also reach out to me or our support department, who are available with that phone number, or by emailing or getting on edmentum.com/support. So, and I am putting my email address right now into the chat. If you want to take that down, feel free to email me as well. And while we talk about questions, if you wouldn't mind just, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. We'll go back here and I'll get that link for you here in just a second. All right, let me copy this link and I'll put this in the chat as well, if you wouldn't mind giving me some feedback. This is just for my personal growth. So as a presenter and instructor and training on these platforms, if there's some feedback, that'd be much appreciated. So any questions while we move through that I can help answer that are burning right now? Okay, well, that is it for today. Like I said, please get your feet wet, navigate through it, maybe go through it again, and just see if you can, what you can pull from the presentation. I know Elizabeth recorded today, so you have access to this, but if you want to reach out, I'm happy to take some time. I know I've chatted with a couple of you at different times as well, just some quick question answers. I'm here for that purpose, to work with you. So thank you again, and have a great afternoon. I'll hang out for a while though if you have any questions.